Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the only man who is higher on Jahan Dotson than the Commanders. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. Love that pick. Yeah, it was a little higher than my board, but it's okay. Big fan. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Kyle, a lot of fun sports going on.
Yeah, playoff basketball's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah, playoff basketball's been great. Playoff hockey, of course, just started in the draft, which is what we're here to talk about. We're going to give our grades, our letter grades, and these are the definitive grades. These will be 100% correct when we look back on it a year from now. No bad takes whatsoever.
10 years from now will be correct.
Yeah, whatever you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, we're the smartest people in football. We've said this before.
Yeah, you're right. I think that everyone just accepts that about it. No, I mean, the reality is with these grades, I think it's fair. The fair way to look at it is we're evaluating the process, right? We're grading the process. Yeah. There's obviously a chance that one of these guys is going to end up a superstar that no one expected. It's all about the process.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see how some of these guys play out, how some of this plays out, because there are some interesting picks. And I think one of the things that I think I even said it on the last podcast the day before the draft is, I didn't feel like there was a lot of separation between guy number 15 on my board and guy number 50 on my board. So we saw that kind of jump back and forth. We saw some interesting picks. I'm interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, I think so as well. So just how we're going to do this. We're going to go through each team. We're going to start off with the AFC East and work our way across the board. So if you're listening on the audio only feed, if you only want to listen to your team, I would recommend go on to YouTube channel. Just check out, if the banners will be on the bottom of the screen. You can skip it, search there to figure out where your team is picking. Kyle, ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
All right, let's start off with the Buffalo Bills. The Bills had an interesting draft, I think headlined by Kaiir Elam, probably the biggest one name there. Of course, punt god as well. They had some fun ones. I give the Bills a B+.
Yeah, I gave it a B as well. I didn't do plus or minuses, but I guess I can say
okay.
I do think it's a higher B. I agree. I think that the Elam pick. I think you had this in the draft, and I think our mock draft, and I think it just made a ton of sense for Buffalo. He's a big corner. He fits their scheme so well, and we think he's going to be really good across from Trey White. I think that's a good pick. And then going into their second round too. You know what? I don't love running back draft picks in the first two rounds sometimes, but second to last pick in the second round, and I think James Cook's going to have a chance to start right away. And then you just go down the board. Is a 6th round pick worth for a punter? Not always, but at the same time, it's a need that they have. And Matt Arias is probably going to start for a long time. He's a good punter. And then Khalil Shakir too in the 5th round is someone who I think has a ton of upside too. And I thought it was a good draft. I have it as B.
Yeah, I think Shakir could be that Cole Beasley replacement perhaps. And I agree about James Cook. Don't love running backs in round 2, but if you're going to select the running back in round 2, this is the team to do it. A team that has really no flaws except for the running back position and is ready to be competitive now.
Yeah, be as good as the Buffalo Bills, then you can draft a running back.
Yeah, exactly. Kyle, let's talk about your team. The Patriots had they had a draft. This was an interesting one. I went back and forth on this. I gave the Patriots an F. I just think that this is listen. I'm sure they're going to get some good players out of this. I don't hate every single pick that they made, but if we're talking about maximizing your value, drafting Cole Strange in round 1 and Tyquan Thornton in round 2, that's just not maximizing your value.
Yeah, I had it as a D. It's just what? I think at some point, there are a few times in, when certain teams draft players at positions, I usually think I'm wrong. And I
Hmm.
think, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those situations. Like, if the Packers draft an offensive tackle,
Hmm.
I probably think I'm the wrong one in this case.
Sure.
The
Like Ravens with
Patriots,
a defensive back.
yeah, and even
Hmm.
defensive tackle is another thing they're good at too. Some of those
Hmm.
positions teams are just really good at. That being said, I did not have Cole Strange that high. I think that
Uh-huh.
there's two things obviously the Patriots went for here. They went for age because all of these guys are old, and they went for speed. They have a lot of speed. Strange is a quick guard. Tyquan Thornton's obviously blazing fast.
Hmm.
Jones is kind of that quick twitchy slot corner. Jack Jones has good
Hmm.
speed
Two
too.
Joneses.
Yeah, Pierre Strong is kind of that home run hitting back too. They wanted to get faster, and I think that was their plan. So I think I upgraded it to a D because it did seem like there's a plan here. That being said, I don't necessarily agree with the plan, but we'll see because it's another thing too. So the process behind it all, it is interesting because there's reports flying everywhere, like as soon as this draft's going on and just all the time. And it was like, oh, well, the Jaguars traded up and paid a premium because the Patriots were going to take Devin Lloyd. We don't know how true that is. The Patriots aren't ever going to admit to that.
Hmm.
And then the other part of it was like, oh, well, there was reports that Cole Strange wasn't going to get out of the second round, actually. We don't know if that's actually true because he was taken in the first round. There was reports that Tyquan Thornton was on one of those guys' draft board because there was a string of like 4 or 5 receivers in a row at that point, basically. And someone had said that Thornton was going to get taken in one of those picks right after them. So that's why they traded up. I don't know if any of it's true, but that being said, it still feels like reaches to me. I like the Marcus Jones pick a lot. That's someone I kind of had tabbed at that spot for the Patriots when I
Hmm.
did like a billion mark drafts. I like
Uh-huh.
Chasen Hines and Andrew Stuber too as late round picks. And knowing the Patriots, those are probably going to be good players.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if next year we're looking at this and there's, 5 or 6 starters out of this group. But that being said, it did feel like a reach.
I agree. I don't listen. I'm sure the Patriots. Again, you have to give the Patriots the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not going to give them a higher grade just because they're the Patriots. And the history of the NFL does show when you have these reaches, like a Cole Strange, like a Tyquan Thornton, which are Cole Strange, 29th picked, he's 86 on the consensus big board. Thornton, 50th picked, 146th on the consensus big board. Historically, it's very rare that those guys end up, reaching their actual draft value.
Yeah, I will say one more thing about the Patriots. Like I said, when they've taken offensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, Damian Woody is obviously good. Adrian Clem, not too good. Matt Light, Logan Mankin, Sebastian Vollmer, Nate Soldier, and Isaiah Wynn. More times
Mhm.
than not, they're hitting on these guys. So,
Sure.
I do think that there's a good chance that Cole Strange is a pretty good football player. It's just not where I would have picked him.
Yeah, exactly. It's not maximizing your value. Bailey Zappi was interesting. I think he could be a quality backup, and Belichick does do a pretty good job of drafting these backup quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett, like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and they even said during the interview process or the press conference process, they were like, you know what? I think quarterback is one of those positions you should probably upgrade every once in a while and
Hmm.
just bring a new guy into the room and see what you got. And I don't think Mac Jones's job is not on the line this season, obviously.
Yeah, we have a chatter. Bailey Zappi, QB1 in New England. We'll see if Zappi Mania comes through. Let's move on. Let's go to the most exciting draft, the one we're all here to talk about, the Miami Dolphins. Wild draft here with the Miami Dolphins. I gave him a B. I think Channing Tindall is an interesting player. So, they basically had no capital to get anything. They got a solid linebacker. So I'll give you a B.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's fine. I'd put C just because it's kind of an unknown. I mean, this draft
Mhm.
is all about how good Tyreek Hill is for the next 5 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to care about any of these picks. Like, I don't see a lot of these guys playing a whole lot. Maybe Tyndall, like you said, makes a rotation. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this comes down to how good Tyreek Hill is. And I thought they paid a lot for that trade, but Tyreek Hill is a good football player. But as far as the picks go, I just put C.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We don't spend forever on this one, I don't think, with the Miami Dolphins. If you want to hear me break down kind of all those picks or any of these picks, I made videos on every single one of these teams' drafts, breaking down each individual pick. So check that out. New York Jets rounding out the division. So I'm going to have a couple of things where I might have some disagreements from the consensus here, because the way I'm viewing this is not, did you get good players? Because if you have a lot of good draft picks, you're going to get good players. I'm talking about how much did you maximize your value. So I'm giving the Jets a B here. I think they did a solid job, but I do feel like part of why people are giving, I think they're number one on the consensus big board, or not just on someone that compiled all of the draft grades, and they were number one. And I feel like that's too high because they just had a lot of draft capital. So, of course, they're going to get a lot of good players. I still thought they did a good job. Like Sauce Gardner was my number 2 overall prospect. I like Garrett Wilson, and even Jermaine Johnson for where you got him is solid. But I didn't think this was an amazing draft either.
Yeah, obviously, I had it at a B as well because, I like Gardner too. Johnson was a lot higher on my board, and I thought it was a good pick at 27, although they did have to trade back into the first round to get him. I wasn't as high on Garrett Wilson. I had a few receivers above them, but if that was your guy, obviously that's the pick there. The Breece Hall thing. So
yeah,
I get you. You could you could just say I don't know. I feel like that there was a chance for the team to get another starter, and Breece Hall might start for this team for the next 5 seasons. But you just drafted 2 running backs, if I'm not mistaken, in the last draft. And now you're spending another second-round pick on a running back this season. And I didn't think Michael Carter sucked last year. I thought he was fine. I just feel like that could have been used for a better resource.
I agree. I like Breece Hall. I think he helps the team. Trading up to get a running back when you're a bad team is not great. It's just not a good idea. And apparently they tried to trade up to the first round to get him. They wanted a 4th first-round pick there. I just think that I agree. Here's the counter is their goal is clearly we have to develop Zach Wilson. And I feel like if Breece Hall can help develop Zach Wilson and help the running game more, because there were times last year where I'm like, man, it's 3rd and 6 and Zach Wilson hasn't touched the ball yet this series because he had 2 2-yard runs and now he's in a bind. At least Breece Hall could help out with that. So if you're spending the 35th overall pick just to help out Zach Wilson's development, from that logic, I don't hate it as much as a different running back pick we'll get to, but still not what I would have picked. I like the Jeremy Ruckert pick at 101 as well.
Yeah, that was a good pick. I mean, I do have it as a very good draft. And, Michael Clemens is 25, and we'll see too, but he's a guy who has a ton of production, so he might be able to come in and make an impact as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this is going to be a very telling draft, I feel like, for the next few years. I mean, these last 2 drafts are going to be basically what define the Jets for the next 5 or 6 years, because they got their quarterback last draft, and now they're thinking that this is potentially 4 or 5 starters out of this draft. Those guys have to pan out, and it'll be interesting to see if it works out for them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as well. And plus, I'm not as high on Jermaine Johnson. I've talked about that. I made a video on that. We'll not get into that, but that's also part of why I have my grade there. Let's go to the Bengals here. Let's go to Cincinnati. Cincinnati Bengals. Go with, so I have the Bengals. Again, this might be a bit of a hot take. I have them as a D-. I tried to do the thing where I feel like a lot of times when I see this stuff, I see a lot of people, like basically every team has a C or higher. I wanted to give teams Ds. I wanted to give teams Fs as well. I just don't love Daxton Hill. It really comes down to, do you like Daxton Hill? I don't love Daxton Hill. The Bengals didn't get a single player that was on my top 64 prospect power rankings board, whatever you want to call it. So because of that, I have it as a D-. But again, if you like Daxton Hill, it's a fine draft. That's my thing.
Yeah, I had it as a B because I do like Daxton Hill, and I think he's good. I think the question is going to be, so I thought that outside corner was going to be their number 1 spot, and I mean, they got Cam Taylor-Britt, so hopefully that kind of helps. But yeah, I mean, Daxton Hill isn't going to be an outside corner. He's not going to take over that job for Eli Apple. That's just not really his role. So we'll see. I mean, there's a few guys I kind of like throughout this draft, though. I mean, I like Hill. I think he brings a ton of upside. I think he brings versatility. Taylor-Britt's another guy who I think can be a pretty good corner as well. And then you go down even to round 5, Tyson Anderson is kind of just this jack of all trades guy. They got versatility in the secondary now that I don't think they had before. I think this is a pretty good draft, and I think that they could. One of these guys, I think, is going to turn into a solid starter.
Yeah, I don't fully disagree. Again, even a D- draft, you're still getting some talent. In my opinion, JJ52 with a super chat. We appreciate that. Which QB will start for the Steelers, and where do you rank their receiving core? Will they be a playoff team? Don't know about playoffs. I think Kenny Pickett is going to end up being the starter.
Uh, agree on both, and I don't think they'll be a playoff team now.
Yeah, the receiving core, I think, maybe knocking on the door of top 10. I don't know if it can get there just yet because it remains to be seen on these young guys, but it has potential.
Yeah. Perfect. Do you want to
Yeah.
just go to who's next
Yeah,
on your list?
let's go right to the Steelers. They were already next to my list anyway, so it works out. I gave the Steelers an A minus. Even though I'm not as high on Kenny Pickett as some others. I didn't hate him either. I had him as a fringe first round talent. So 20th here. Basically, every rule I say about any prospect, you throw it all out the window with quarterbacks. Do whatever you can. There are no rules of quarterback. Draft 1,000 of them, whatever. I don't care. Like, I think it's just there are no rules of quarterback. I also really liked a couple of the receivers they got, Calvin Austin and George Pickens. I thought Pickens especially I was high on. Again, as on the field, I guess the character concerns. I get all that, but when he's playing football, he's fantastic. Also, with pick 208, getting Connor Hayward, Cam Hayward's, I believe, brother. This is intentional, right? The Steelers love just getting related people to each other. Like, there's no way that this has happened multiple times by coincidence.
Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, I mean, I gave it a B. I was stringent on my A's. I do have to say that. I don't have a lot of A's, but I do think so. The Pickett pick makes sense. I have my questions about Kenny Pickett in the future of him as an NFL quarterback. We went over this in our top 10 quarterbacks thing. He's not my favorite guy. I think the age thing is concerning. I think that he spends so much time in basically the same system is a little concerning. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he translates to the next level. Pickens, I wasn't as high on as you. I wasn't really that high on him to begin with, but I think 52 is fair value for him. I think that'll be interesting to see how he translates. And then DeMarvin Leal's a guy I really like. I think, he's got a ton of production. He's a bit of a tweener. I'll be interested to see, but this is one of those things where it's like, okay, a smart team made a pick that I agree with, so I think it's right. So I think I'm smart all of a sudden. This is a team that drafts defensive linemen very well. I'm interested to see how they use him because he's kind of a tweener between an edge and a defensive tackle. But I think he can be a really good pass rushing defensive tackle if he's moved into that spot. So I do have it as a B. I do think that there are some good players here, but once again, this is one of those drafts where it all just depends on if Kenny Pickett's a productive football player.
Yeah, I almost thought that I was almost half expecting them to draft Malik Willis at some point here too, like double down on quarterback. Might as well. With all the quarterbacks falling, might as well take a second chance.
Yeah, so that was interesting, wasn't it? It was just basically like everyone said, you know what? If it's not worth spending a first round pick on, you might as well just let him fall as far as you can, so you get him as cheap as you can.
Yeah, it really feels like only one team had a mindset of we really want a quarterback this draft. I guess two teams. I think the Panthers also, but they just went with a star player ahead of it. I think this is one of the teams that they really felt like I think the Steelers were the only team that said we're going quarterback here.
If he wasn't right across the hall, do you think he's the first quarterback taken?
I don't know. I think it's possible. The answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Mike Tomlin could have just got free tickets to every pick game and is like, yeah, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah, it would have been very awkward to say because isn't the same. I'm going to draft someone else though, even though you're available.
Yeah, they play in the same stadium, legitimately. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Let's go to the Browns. Browns did not have a very hyped up draft here because of obviously they did not have a pick in the top 67 spots. They drafted a kicker. That's fun. And really, it seemed like a lot of what they did. So I had the Browns actually as a B plus. They got a lot of picks. So that's always good. Get as much picks as you can when you don't have a ton of high level picks. Make sure you can get the next picks. I also thought what they did was they had a clear strategy to just go out and get players who were good at football. Is David Bell going to work out? I don't know. But was he a good football player when he was playing? Yeah. And that's just kind of what they did was said, we're just going to get a bunch of guys who are good at football now. And some of these guys are going to work out. So they didn't have a ton of draft capital. And again, that's kind of how I evaluate it is, did you maximize your draft capital? I think they did a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, I think I had it as a C, but like you said, it's there's not a lot of high-end talent here, obviously, because they picked so late. But I think there is good value picks here. I actually think Bell could be a pretty good value pick. I think Winfrey right after him, too, could be a pretty good value pick. And yeah, I mean, like you said, this is a team that just gave a starting quarterback $250 guaranteed $1 million. Is that the right number?
Something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous like that. So you need a lot of draft picks to make sure you have a good football team around him because that cap's going to spread thin pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, getting these amount of picks helps with that. So, yeah, I like that. Again, don't spend forever on it because I'm not sure how exciting it was. Let's talk about one that was exciting here, Kyle.
Oh,
The
boy.
Baltimore Ravens was. I mean, this is an A plus, right? I mean, even me as someone who didn't love don't love drafting a punter in round 4. It wasn't as high in Kyle Hamilton as some others, but like, okay, first off, trading Hollywood Brown for a first round pick is like insane that worked out, that somehow managed to happen. And they had 6 fourth round picks, and they got a lot of players I liked in the 4th round as well. It wasn't just like they were, had a bunch of picks and squandered them. So the Ravens are smart. Ravens do it better than just about anybody. So to me, this is a clear win. And clear. I only gave out 2 A pluses. This is one of them.
Yeah, this is an A for me. I mean, Travis Jones fell to 76.
Yeah, crazy.
And of course, it's the Ravens who get him, right? I mean, this team just drafts. This team is miles ahead in the draft compared to everybody else. I think Kyle Hamilton. If there was a team I wanted Kyle Hamilton to go to try and maximize his skill set, this was probably it, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna find ways for him to be successful. Linderbaum at 25. You're basically trading Marquise Brown for Tyler Linderbaum on a rookie contract in the 100th pick or whatever it was. I mean, that's a hell of a deal. It was, you go further down the list. It was like Jalen Amore Davis. I really like him. And this is another team, drafting cornerbacks. They're really smart. I think it makes me smart that I think like them. And I think he's got real starting corner upside if he can stay healthy. And the big thing is if he can stay healthy. 139, Isaiah Likely might be the best pass catching tight end in this draft. They again got him. So I'm not overly worried about the future of this team without Hollywood Brown, who I'm not very high on to begin with. This is a lot of really good players. I could see a lot of guys, and then he may not play this season, but David Ojabo at 45 is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a guy who was going in the first round if his Achilles is intact. So this is a fantastic draft for them.
Yeah, just incredible stuff. This is something that this is like when you do like one of those mock draft simulators, like this is how it goes, so where everything works out perfectly the way you want it to. That's what the Ravens just did in real life.
Yeah, exactly. So awesome draft from them. This team's going to be good. And I mean, this defense has a chance to be just scary for the next few seasons. I mean, look at these guys. I mean, it's just insane to me.
Yeah, no, this will be Ravens should be. Hopefully, they can stay healthy. They would be. I mean, they were nearly what made the playoffs last year with like all those injuries. This could be a really good football team. Let's go to Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans. So I'm giving them a D. Part of it is I'm including the AJ Brown trade. So losing AJ Brown it hurts. It does. They replace him with Treylon Burks, who listen. You can't just expect Treylon Burks to be AJ Brown, even if you're high on Treylon Burks, which I was not. There's stuff that we saw from AJ Brown as a prospect, just a prospect that we have not yet seen from Burks. We do not know if Burks can win on the outside consistently the way AJ Brown can. Should he be a good player in that sort of that slot over the middle role against play action? I think he'll be good at that, even as someone who's lower on Burks. But it's a big risk, and the chances are it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, now you're getting a lot cheaper production of even if it's not quite as good, it's a lot cheaper. So it's not the end of the world. I don't hate it. And the Malik Willis pick, I think, is very interesting. But you're losing AJ Brown. You're already swimming upstream a little bit.
Yeah, I gave it a C just because I questioned their first two picks. I had Treylon Burks at 27 on my board, so 18's a little bit of a reach. Roger McCreary is not a guy I was very high on either as a corner. He could, I still think, translate into a starter because he's got, he's pretty. I mean, he's got good tape, and he's long and he's athletic. I think he could be very good, but I did see him get beat a few too many times for my liking. But their next two picks, I think, are fantastic. I like Nicholas Petit-Frere. I think he could be a starter at this level at a very nice number 69. And then, I mean, just on value alone, based on my big board compared to where they're picked, I had Malik Willis at 16 and he was picked at 86. So, I mean, that's insane value. So just going down the list, I mean, you can go down some of the other guys. I like Okonkwo as well. I like Kyle Phillips. I think there's just good guys down the list. I didn't love the first two picks, and then couple that with they made those first two picks after trading AJ Brown. Not a huge fan of that one.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like I said, there was still some good stuff. And a D isn't an atrocious grade. Listen, that's how I got through high school, right? D's can be please have their very they have their role. The Malik Willis one is very fascinating. I actually really like the Malik Willis one. Hey, this could be a Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes type scenario, right? Alex Smith was an MVP candidate his last year in Kansas City. So getting someone who has high potential like Malik Willis does is not a bad idea at all at pick 86. So there was stuff I liked about it. Just it's not a huge fan of McCreary either. So that's kind of why I have it lower.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. This is another one of those where it's like, okay, is Willis going to play? Because I feel like that could depend on a lot. And Treylon Burks, like you said, he has to be really good. He has to hit the mud. He has to be a home run pick basically at this point because of what they gave up to make sure and then getting a guy like him. I think that's really important. Willis, I think, is going to be interesting. He's going to have some time to learn. I really like that offense for his skill set. And that's part of the reason why I liked Atlanta taking him, because it's a similar offense, obviously, with Arthur Smith there. And he's going to go there, and I think he could have a lot of success with Robert Woods, and we'll see if Burks works out too.
Yeah. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts, I gave them an A, largely due to, I had Alec Pierce and Bernard Raymond with first-round grades. They don't have a top 50 pick and get two players that I have a first-round grade on. That's going to be an A for me.
Yeah, I had it as B. I didn't have Pierce as quite a first-round pick, but I did have him pretty high, and I think it's a good value there at 53. Raymond, I thought was an interesting one too. I think he's a good tackle, and I think he's going to start. This feels like a very Colts draft. Like outside of Pierce, who they've adding a wide receiver in the draft, I guess is kind of Indianapolis Colts-esque. And then just getting a bunch of guys who are going to fill the trenches for them. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of how they've done things, and they did it again here.
Yeah, I think so as well. You could make the argument the Colts, just saying this division, slight spoiler alert, the highest I gave someone else was a D+. Colts get an A here. So I think the Colts had, who knows? The Colts might end up walking out of this with more talent out of anyone in their division, which is crazy given what other teams had draft capital-wise.
Yeah. Honestly, it's it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how this division plays out. There's a lot of high-profile moves here.
I teased it, so let's just go there. Let's go to the Texans first. So I have him as a D+. I do not have, because again, yes, Derek Stingley is a great prospect. You were picking third overall. You should get a good prospect with Derek Stingley. That's kind of how I view it. The interesting thing is, their top 6 guys are all guys who some people are very high on. Derek Stingley, Kenyon Green, Jalen Petir, John Mechie, or I think it's actually Mechie. I think I've been pronouncing it wrong. Christian Harris, and then Dameon Pierce. Like, Dameon Pierce was my number 1 running back, but it's still a running back. And John Mechie I liked a lot, but at 44, that's, probably close to fair value. And I really like Stingley as well. I just did not like the Kenyon Green pick. I'm not as high on Petir as other people, and I'm also not as high on Christian Harris as other people were. It's really the Kenyon Green pick that I docked them for.
I kind of had it as a D too, because I like all these guys, but they're way higher than even I had them at some point.
Right.
Outside of Petir, he's a guy I like, and that was a good pick, I thought. But Stingley, I wasn't high on as a number 3 pick, although I do think so. Let's do this first. Stingley, to me, I would not be shocked in 5 years. Stingley is not only the best cornerback in this draft, but one of the best cornerbacks in football. He has that insane talent. If you just went off his freshman tape at LSU, you're thinking this guy is going to be the next all-pro corner, potential defensive player of the year candidate, yada, yada, yada. This is an organization that's had some issues, I think, lately, and then a guy who basically quit on a team. I know a lot of guys quit on that LSU team. I don't love the pick at number 3. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do think that he has insane talent and has a chance to be a superstar at that position, but I still wouldn't have taken him number 3 just because of some of the other stuff. And he has to show he's going to want to tackle, which he hasn't done in basically 2 years. I had Kenyon Green as a first-round selection. I didn't have him at number 15. I didn't have him in my top 20. That felt like a reach. And then I wasn't as high on Mechie as some of the other people. I didn't like Christian Harris all that much. He looked slow to me. And they got him with a 3rd-round pick. And it's just like, so I'm looking at it now. It's like, okay, you do have potential starters in the first 3 picks, even though I think that two of them are a reach. I don't see Mechie and Harris as potential starters, and those are supposed to be starter level draft picks, and I just don't see it. I do have it as a little bit lower because of that.
Yeah, and again, they still got a lot of talent. That's the value of having extra draft capital. But so they're still moving in the right direction, but just maybe a little more slowly than I would have loved. Let's talk about Jacksonville. This
F.
is, I mean, this is an F for me. I do not like the Trayvon Walker selection. That pick is going to give it, again, someone who I did not have a first round grade on. You pick first overall. Like, yeah, that's going to make it automatically an F. I like the Devin Lloyd pick. Even the Chad Muma pick, I think is fine. I know you don't need a linebacker, but whatever. You're not good enough of a team to draft for need. Pick whoever you like. But even like a Luke Fortner pick, I thought was weird. This is enough for me.
Yeah, so I like the Lloyd pick and the Muma pick individually. The problem is you draft both of them. Like, is inside linebacker that much of an issue for you that you need two in the first, two in the first 3 rounds? I question that a little bit as the first thing. Second of all, they paid a lot to get up to Devin Lloyd at 27. From where they were to where they jumped up to, it was kind of a hefty price. I like Lloyd a lot, and obviously I think if it was just they were picking at 27 and drafted Devin Lloyd, I'd say that's great value. But they made a huge trade for that. And then the Walker piece, I agree. You could say I think this Georgia defense messed with a lot of people's heads.
Yeah.
I just heard a lot of conversations about this Georgia defense, about the, where should they have, this defense was just constructed as for Nakobe Dean to get tackles. These defensive tackles just basically had to fill gaps. Trayvon Walker is playing such a specific role. He doesn't have high sack numbers. But at the same time, like, you could also say, okay, Trayvon Walker wasn't good enough to supplant Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis, 2 guys picked after him. So he was moved out to defensive end and wasn't as good a defensive end as defensive tackle, even though he wasn't good enough to play defensive tackle to begin with. His physical traits are insane. He's obviously a fantastic athlete. But I don't think there's more pressure. I've never seen this much pressure on an edge rusher to be successful since Mario Williams was taken over Vince Young by the Houston Texans. There was 2 really high-level edge rushing prospects in this draft that they passed on for this guy, and this wasn't the kind of player that I projected as needed to be good right away, and I think he's going to have to show that he's good right away to prove that they didn't need to take a guy like Thibodeau or Hutchinson. And it'll be interesting to see if it works out. I still think that the athlete is insane and he could work out, but there's just so much pressure on him to be this good because of the guys taken after him.
Yeah. So here's something that I heard that I think is interesting. So I was listening to Wayne Gretzky was on the Spitting Chicklets podcast. So I was listening to that, and Gretzky told a story about how he was playing. I don't know all the levels of hockey, but he was playing at a lower level, and there was a team that has a bigger pool of kids to choose from, and they would always win, and they would always beat Wayne Gretzky's team as a kid. And what Gretzky's dad told him that, listen, this team, they always know their assignment. They're incredibly well coached, and not a single one of them is going to make it to the next level because all they do is they play their role. There's no creativity in their game. When I heard that, I immediately thought about this Georgia defense and how they all do their role. They're all very good, but is there a chance that a lot of these guys end up not actually being great pros because all they're really doing great is being that role in a defense and not being a complete player?
It's possible. I mean,
just a theory I had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it translates exactly from hockey to football, but I mean, at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I think that they all showed a little bit of versatility to do some different things. But look, I mean, I just think, Walker was on the outside on an edge, and, the argument was, well, he wasn't asked to rush the passer as much. He was asked to do different things. Okay, well, he's going to be asked to rush the passer. Right. He's not going to be asked to be, a run-stuffing defensive end. That just doesn't exist in the NFL. He's going to need to get pressure the quarterback because it's a passing league. He's not playing in the SEC anymore, playing with Florida, who's going to run the ball 40 times. He's going to have to play NFL quarterbacks and get after them. So we'll see if it works out for them.
He's also not as good of a run defender as Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau are.
No.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I think, I think there's a ton of pressure. Like I said, I haven't seen this pressure since Mario Williams was picked number 1. And he's going to have to produce results similar to Williams.
Yeah. Let's move on to a great draft. Kansas City Chiefs, A+. Love this draft. Get Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, 2 guys who, I had as top 20. I can't remember where I put McDuffie, but I like McDuffie, love Karlaftis. To get both of those guys in the first round. and their positions of need. End up with Sky Moore, who should be a very interesting fit in that defense. They reached a bit on Brian Cook, but I like Brian Cook, so I'm okay with that. And also got what's considered kind of a steal with Leo Chanel, although I wasn't as crazy about Chanel. Still, pick 103. That's great value. And then Darian Kennard, a guy who, again, I guess there's some character concerns with him, but they got him at 145. He was 67th on the consensus big board. I think he could compete for a starting spot on that offensive line. So at pick 145, that's a great value. There's a real chance that we look at this draft and say they got 6 quality starters when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I was thinking, I really do think that 6 of their first 7 picks can be interesting. I am a little surprised they only went 2 offensively, especially given their receiver concerns. But hey, 54 for Moore, I think, is a really good value, and I think he's going to be good for that team. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out. But yeah, I mean, I really like all these players, and I think Karl Loftus is another one of those just absolute steals of the draft. I think he's going to be really good for them.
Yeah, and I also think, they had Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, so they had a couple of, the receiving core is still not going to be fantastic, but it's not a mess either. So, and I actually think their defense was a bigger need going. I heard something that was probably true. It's like corner was probably a bigger need for them than receiver heading into this draft, and it probably is true. So getting McDuffie, just a great draft.
Well, they lost their top guy, right? He went to San Francisco. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
I know you're thinking Ward, Tre'Davious
Yes.
Ward, and then they also lost Mike Hughes, who was good when he stepped in for them last year. So they needed to add some depth there.
Yeah, I thought it was a good draft, and I think, I mean, it's not surprising here that like the Chiefs and Ravens are our favorite drafts, and the Jaguars are our least favorite draft.
Right. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Also, some people saying, Justin Ross, the undrafted guy who was, hyped up at some point, saying he's the steal. I wasn't crazy about Justin Ross, but getting him undrafted, I mean, that's a great value as well.
Yeah, we'll see. I also forgot to mention on the Patriots too, Derek King. I like that undrafted.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
He'll be the true. Hey, everyone made fun of me for my Derek King over Carson Strong pick. Hey, they both ended up undrafted.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, back to the Chiefs. I don't mean to, ruin the storm there. I mean, there's some things I like Ross. Obviously, the injury concern is scary, and if he didn't have that, he'd be drafted. So I guess that's value. I want to see him get a little more separation. I thought he really struggled his last year at Clemson.
Yeah, he's very much a route runner guy who doesn't really have the speed to get past people. So we'll see how that works. The Raiders. People were, the wait is over for the people in the chat who were clamoring, wanting some Raiders stuff. I give the Raiders a B+. I thought that they did, again, I like Neil Farrell Jr. a lot more than the consensus was. He was 174 on the consensus board, gets drafted 126. I think I had him in my top 64 prospects, so that shows how high I was on him. Also, Dylan Parham, I'm interested in. Did not have a great year last year, but did have a great year 2 years ago. So you're kind of banking on maybe there was a reason for his struggles last year. Samir White, again, don't love running backs, but at pick 122, I'm fine with that. So I like this draft.
Yeah, I gave it a solid B. I thought I like all the players they got. I actually liked White a little more than Cook. Speaking of Georgia running backs, so I think that's pretty good value. And you kind of hit it all with Parham and Farrell too. I think those could be good players. And I think the solution to the Raiders' problem is basically just to trade your first round pick for Devontae Adams instead of using your first round picks. Because I mean, especially after the news dropped a couple days later that all 3 of their first round picks from a few years ago aren't getting their 5th-year options.
Right.
Getting a guy like Devontae Adams probably makes a little bit more sense, and I think they got good value later in the draft here. So I think this is a solid draft. I think that they're going to have good players here, and they're going to fill out nicely.
Yeah, it's very, very funny about no one has missed on more first-round picks in the last 5 years than the Raiders. So getting rid of those first-rounders
makes sense. They missed 3 in one draft.
Incredible.
3.
Yeah.
Clayline Farrell, Jonathan Abrams, and Josh. I mean, I like Josh Jacobs, but at the same time, 5th-year option not being picked up is a stinging indictment on your career.
Yeah. Cleveland Farrell, such a big miss. You still don't know how to say his name. And he was, 4th overall pick.
I don't need to learn his name.
Yeah, you don't need it. We never had to learn it. Everyone's like, oh man, you're going to have to learn. Didn't have to learn it. I spent all that time figuring out how to say his name for nothing. It was a waste of time.
And I actually don't think he's a bad football player. He's just wasn't the number 4 pick in the draft.
Right. He wasn't a horrible prospect. Like same thing with like Alex Leatherwood. It's like he wasn't a horrible prospect, but just got way overdrafted. No overdraft for the Raiders. Good stuff with them. I liked it. And part of one last thing I'll say about them, I had a theory of like, I wonder, how many of those people remained in the building with the Raiders when the new regime came in. Because if you have some of those guys who like, hey, if you have someone who picked the Max Crosby selection with one of those scouts, like it's possible that you still have guys who can pick these late round picks well. You just got rid of the guys who's making the maybe that's just being too optimistic, but like maybe there's a chance that you're still going to get some of these steals without the early misses.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean it'll be interesting to see what happens with this team. Yeah, I think it's I still think it's a solid draft though. Like you said, I think that there's good value here, and that I think they got some big guys on the defensive line. I think can make an impact.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's go to the Chargers here. I gave the Chargers a C+. So I thought it was all right. I like Zion Johnson a good amount. I thought the JT Woods pick was maybe a bit too high. Also, I'm not sure if I would have gone with Isaiah Spiller, but it was later on in the draft. Their biggest, they only had, one top 78 pick, which was Zion Johnson. And, filled a need. I think it'll be very good for them. That wasn't really somewhere I thought they were going to go, but I don't hate it, especially with the top receivers off the board. So I thought it was fine. I wasn't blown away by it either.
Yeah, I ended up going B, but I think C plus actually feels more appropriate. I just didn't do plus minus grades. And it was mainly like you said. I really like Johnson, and I think he's going to start right away. I really like Spiller. I think he's going to be able to play some too. And just going down the list, I like other guys. I think the one thing I could criticize, I would have liked one more receiver for the Chargers. I would have liked them to go get one more guy to play kind of a slot role. They obviously feel like they didn't need to address that, but I think that's one thing I really wanted this team to get, and they did.
Yeah. Also, someone from the chat, Raiders talk done. I'm out. All right. Well, appreciate you, listening to this far, and I'm sure you're gone now. So, whatever.
All right. Bye. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raiders fans.
Yeah, sure. We appreciate all of the fans here. I guess you should have saved Raiders for the end, huh?
Yeah, we should always save them for last.
Yeah, next time we'll do that. There you go. Raiders fans working against you. But yeah, I think Zion Johnson will be very good. And right when that happened, I'm like, oh yeah, of course they're going to go guard. Like their tackle situation, they have way more options there. So that I think that I was picking them. I was expecting them to go tackle the whole time until they went guard, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's what they should do.
And he's a guy who I think can also bounce out there and fill in a tight spot too. So I think he's versatile, and I think he's going to be able to play multiple positions for this team.
Yeah, interesting. Broncos here, the last of the AFC. I like this one fine enough. I give it a B. I think Nick Bonino, not someone I was crazy high about because I think some of his wins are a bit unconventional, but at the same time, 64, that's good value. Greg Dulcich, I think, will be a guy who can come in day one and be a solid player. So gave him a B, and that's where I had him.
Yeah, I had a B as well. I was just reminding myself who they drafted. Yeah, I mean, I like Bonito. I liked him a little more than you, I think, too. I know he's all speed, but I do think that, when this is another team, too, when they have so many defensive linemen, sometimes a guy who's just going to go in there and turn the gents on is going to throw them off. So I think that's a good pick. I like Damari Mathis too as a corner. I mean, I think he has a chance to turn into a starter. I think Awuzurike also is going to be able to make an impact. I think just going down this list, there's guys that I kind of like and are interested in. I don't know how many. I think the one thing I'm concerned about from this draft is I don't know how many of these guys are starters, certified starters. I don't know.
Do they need any starters?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the argument you make, but you still want starters from every draft, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you want to, but maybe a team that could afford to kind of get some high end, take a chance on like a Nick Bonito. If there's a team that can do it, it might be Denver.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Dallas Cowboys. I gave a D plus here. D is in dog plus. Tyler Smith was kind of again a bit of a reach. I don't hate it. He's a fine player. And again, they do need a guard, but it felt like a bit of a reach. Like same thing with Sam Williams. Like that's just a bit of a reach here. I like the Jalen Tolbert pick, but as a whole, this is bit below average for me.
We're in unison here. I like D. I like D. I picked D.
Whoa.
Slow down.
Someone cut that out of context.
Yeah, exactly. I went with the D here. Talking too fast for my own good. I think my favorite pick of this draft was Damon Clark. I think he could be a good linebacker for this team, but I don't know. I just go down this list and it's like, okay, Smith is a little bit of a reach for me, although I do think he has some athletic upside that could be interesting. And he's a local kid, and I like when local kids get drafted by their teams. That's fun. But yeah, I mean, I like Ferguson too a little bit, but I don't know if he's gonna, play a whole lot on this team. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. But yeah, this is another draft where it's like, okay, how many guys are starting for the Cowboys on this team going forward? And I just don't see a lot of these guys starting.
Yeah. Also, in the chat, we have someone said, "What order are these bums going in?" And then someone responded with, "You're the only bum," laughing, crying emoji. And he responded back with, "You're spelled correctly." So the chat is in disarray here, Kyle.
They're in disarray. Should we tell them the order, or should we just keep going?
I think we're all right. I think who cares? You can figure it out.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we said it at the beginning. So whatever. Let's move on. Let's go to staying with the division. I wonder why we're doing that. Who can figure that out? Let's go into Eagles here. Eagles at I gave the Eagles an A- because again they got AJ Brown, right? So I'm including that. AJ Brown should really help this team and complete that receiving core. Jordan Davis, I'm not as high on as some other people were. But at the same time, like that's the perfect situation being in Philadelphia where they will simply just. My concern about Davis was always he's a one-trick pony who's great at that one trick. Well, the Eagles are very much like, hey, defensive lineman, just do what you're great at. We don't care what else you do. So like he's in a perfect situation to maximize his potential. Cam Jurgens pick I thought was a little bit interesting, but then Nakobe Dean also falling to them at 83. I guess there's some injury concerns, so that's maybe potential. But as a whole, I like this draft.
Yeah, I went with a B, but it's probably closer to a B plus and closer to your grade too. But yeah, I mean, Dean is an absolute steal. I think he's just gonna rack up the tackles for this team and do really good stuff. I mean, I love Nakobe Dean. I'm gonna enjoy watching him play in the NFL, and I hope he's really good because I've said a lot. I think he's gonna be fantastic. I think the Davis pick is interesting. Another guy I really liked in the draft too. And I think I didn't think the need necessarily was there for a defensive lineman, but they went with it anyway. And I think this is a good situation for Davis to kind of learn and mature up a little bit. He's get to learn behind Fletcher Cox, and then when Fletcher Cox is ready to retire, he's going to step into the full-time role, and he's just going to be asked to do what he has to do best, and he's going to stuff the run and clog up the middle of that field for them. And I think that's going to be a really good pick. I like those two. And then I think the Jurgens pick is also interesting, but it's kind of like what they project out for their center, right? Like if you look at Jason Kelsey, he's this, phenomenal athlete for the center position. It's kind of the similar thing. Even if it feels like a bit of a reach, I do think that's a good pick for them just because it seems like that's what they kind of value in those guys.
Yeah, I get it. I just felt like, I don't know if that's the Eagles just drafted. Didn't they just draft an interior? I thought they just drafted a center last year. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Landon Dickerson. I guess he can play guard. I guess he can play guard for them. So now I'm looking that up. That makes sense then. So yeah, good stuff for them. Let's move on. Let's go to the. Oh, I didn't move the banner. That's my bad. Sorry for any Eagles fans. Okay, if you're watching this after the fact, we just finished talking about the Eagles like 2 minutes ago. So rewind. Now let's go to the Commanders here because I forgot to switch the banner. That's my bad. Commanders, I gave a D-. I know they got your favorite player in the draft, but this was not this. There was a lot of reaches here. The one thing that saved it for me was I liked Sam Howell get at 144. I can't believe Ian Book went ahead of Sam Howell. Ian Book last year went ahead of Sam Howell this year. That's baffling to me. Although again, I wasn't crazy high on Sam Howell either, but I felt 144. What are we doing? But Percy Butler felt like a reach. Brian Robinson, who I liked, don't know if you needed him with a top 100 pick. Fedarian Mathis, 75th on the big board, goes at 47. Jahan Dotson, 31st on the big board, goes at 16. They did a lot of reaching here. Did draft a guard, Chris Paul, not that guard, Chris Paul, the other guard, Chris Paul.
That probably would have been a little bit of a better pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I went C. I like Dotson a lot, and I think he's going to pair really nicely. I think it's going to be a really fun passing game with him and McLaurin. I'm interested to see how that works out. And I think Sam Howell is a fantastic prospect too. I think he's going to be good for this team too. I think I could see him as an eventual starter for this team after he plays behind Wentz a little bit. I think I hate the Robinson pick actually. I dislike it a lot. I don't get why I wasn't as high on him as you are. I think he's kind of a goal line back, And it's just like, why would you use the 98th pick of the draft on a goal line back when this is a team that struggled at linebacker for basically all of last season? Like Leo Chenal went to the Chiefs like in the 100s. You could have taken Leo Chenal there and got a guy like Tyler Allgeier a little later in the draft, who's also a goal line back. It basically has the same skill sets. I think, like, I don't know. I think there's things that they could have done better. I think this team needed a linebacker, definitely. They didn't get it. And then they drafted this guy who's basically for one specific role with pick 98 instead of a starter, potential starter.
Yeah. I just think that they think that they're competitive now. They think they're a complete team and are ready to go. And they think last year was kind of a fluke. They just needed Carson Wentz. They were Carson Wentz away. Also, like trading back with the Jahan Dotson pick. It's like you traded back to get the Dotson. Like you could have stayed there and gotten like Jameson Williams. Like how cool would that have been? It just not a great draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, so you could have said they got Williams. I mean, I still had Dotson 20 on my board, so it's not like a huge reach. I still think it's a good pick. But yeah, I mean, there's some interesting picks here I thought were weird, but there are also some picks I really like. So, I mean, it kind of balances out to a C for me.
Yeah. Let's move on. Also, the chat. Try to behave yourselves here in the chat. We've got some wild stuff going on.
What are we arguing about?
I'm not even sure what's happened here. Well, let's just try to, everyone behave. I'm going to start putting people timeout or banning people if this continues. Let's just, best behavior. Acting a little bit like every now and then the chat acts like there's a substitute teacher. Listen, I don't like to ban people. I don't like to put in timeouts. Let's just try to, pull it back a little.
Okay. All right. Whatever.
Yeah. Giants, New York Football Giants. I gave them a C. I think a C is fair. I know a lot of people are going crazy about this Giants draft. Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal are great selections. But again, you had the 5th and 7th overall pick. You should have gotten good players with those picks. And I just didn't love a lot of their I thought they had a lot of reaches. They had 3 other top 100 picks and didn't get anyone that I was really eyeing as a top 100 guy. Wan'Dale Robinson's interesting to me at 84. Also have a super chat. Go Pack, go, baby. Yeah, appreciate the super chat. But as a whole, it's like, listen, they did what they were supposed to do. They nailed the top 2 picks, and that's great. But they didn't do anything else. I think that was that great, so I'm giving them a C, which is average.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I did go B just because I like those first 2 picks a lot. I think Wan'Dale Robinson fills a nice role for them. And I think they still, I know they got Tony last year, but I think they need a little bit of a twitch, and I think Robinson has that. Dane Belton's going to play, man. He's going to start for this team. I'm calling it right now. Dane Belton's going to get some serious minutes on this team too. I think there's guys up and down the board I like. I went with a B. I'm not going knock out of the park because, like you said, you expect to get 2 really good prospects at 5 and 7. But at the same time, I think that there's good guys still up and down the board.
Yeah, because like I see, someone C, LMAO. Well, this is why we aren't GMs, LOL. But again, it's like, listen, I like the Thibodeau pick. I like the Evan Neal pick. But like even that, I have a little bit of question marks. Like, why did you select Neal second? Why didn't you select Neal at 5, or whichever offensive lineman you liked at 5 to guarantee you got your favorite offensive lineman? Because Thibodeau wasn't going at 6. So even that was a bit weird. And it's like when you have more draft capital, you're going to get better players. That's how this works. Doesn't mean that like you get some credit for not screwing it up. You do. Like it's, the Jaguars screwed it up. You didn't pull a Jacksonville, but I just can't give you that much more credit just because you had. Like what I love about the Giants was their draft capital, not their actual draft itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think it's I think it's fair. I agree with everything you said. I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but they can't miss on another offensive lineman prospect, right? Like
right.
Neal has to be good.
Yeah, could be fun. Him and Andrew Thomas next. I mean, that's the most athletic tackle tandem ever.
Yeah, honestly. So
yeah. Let's move on. Someone said go Pack go with the super chat earlier. Let's go to the Pack. Packers here. I gave them a C-. There's stuff I liked about this draft. I like Christian Watson. I think that's a solid pick. Don't love that you had to trade up for him, but I think that was fine given the way the draft had fallen. Big fan of Devontae Wyatt. I think that was a good value at 28 as well. And even some other guys where it's like, Romeo Dubs or Dubes, however you say it, could be an interesting player. I know some people really like Zach Tom, who they got at pick 140. Some people really like Kingsley Ignagbare, who they got at 179. So, and I think that, those guys, great value with where they got them. So interesting stuff. That's what I like about it. But just, I didn't love the Quay Walker pick. That was just, I don't think that was a smart pick.
Yeah, I did end up docking it a little bit. I only docked it to a B though, because I thought the rest of their picks were so awesome. And they aren't the only team I heard had first round grade on Quay Walker. I heard the Patriots really wanted him too, which would have been funny if they picked him. But hey, I think, I think Wyatt's an absolute steal at 28. I think Christian Watson's a steal at 34. He's a guy I had as a first round prospect. And I think Tom, like you said, someone like I like him a lot too, because I think he's a really good swing tackle. He's got great athleticism. And this is another team that just drafts tackles really well. So he's probably going to be really good. Yeah, I mean, I just go up and down this list and I think that there's a ton of guys here that could be good. I like the future prospects of potentially Watson and Dobbs too, with this receiving core that needed to get better badly. So yeah, I mean, I did go with the B, but yeah, I mean, I understand the Walker pick's a little bit of a reach, but I feel like they not only got good value through the rest of the draft, they filled needs too, and I thought that was important.
Yep. I thought the Watson pick was it was a bit of a reach, but an understandable one. I mean, he was 50th on the consensus big board. He went at 34. I get some people like you really liked him. So I get it. And I understand, I see the DK Metcalf comparisons, right? I totally get it. But there are some issues in his game as well. It is possible they gave up 2 second-round picks for a Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That's also a possibility that could happen here. So, again, there's stuff to like about this Packers draft. They had a lot of draft capital too. So again, part of the drafts that I feel like I'm lower on than other people are the ones where the team just had a lot of draft capital. But that's what I thought. Quay Walker, I didn't even have the top 64 prospect and he went 23rd. That's just, to me, I'm not good. I'm going to dock you a lot for that. And Christian Watson, I think, I had him lower than 34.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the next one?
Let's go to the Minnesota Vikings here.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, Vikings. So I actually don't hate some of these trades. I think that the trades were interesting, but trading back is pretty much always a good idea. You're getting more players, so it's pretty much a good idea. I just didn't love a lot of these selections. Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth, I liked, but other than that, they didn't really get anyone I'm particularly interested in. A lot of the analytics I've looked into, these guys aren't even analytically inclined prospects. They don't even check those boxes, which confuses me. So what are we doing here? So I gave him a D-. I just I like Cine. I like Andrew Booth, but I just didn't love this draft.
Yeah, I think the first 2 picks are good. I think Asamoah has a chance to be a really good linebacker. He's one of the better athletes at linebacker too. But yeah, I think down this list, I think I did end up having this as a B. I like those 3 picks, and I think those are 3 potential starters to this defense, which is another one that really needed to get better. But yeah, down the list, It's just I don't see a lot of these guys playing going forward outside of those 3 guys.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I like the idea of trading back, and I like Cine and I like Booth. I think those are 2 good, talented players. I think that the Vikings did get better. I just feel like there was a lot of room. I just didn't love a lot of those other picks. I'm not a big Brian Asamoah fan, so I just felt like there was a lot of ways they could have gone back. Ed Ingram, 99th on the consensus big board, goes at 59. That's a pretty big reach.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, there are some reaches here, and like you said, with the only thing too with trading back is obviously the better prospects are going to go earlier and potential starters there. But I do think that they got some good value with those top, 3 of their top 4 picks. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys play out.
Yeah, and some people are saying this is the good thing to talk about as well. What's up with the Vikings trading with the Packers for them to move up and get a weapon inside the conference? You like that play? Yeah, a couple of interdivisional trades. I've always been a believer in listen, the goal is to make your team better. You can't start playing trying to make other teams worse game, because if you make a trade that allows the Packers to get better and the Vikings to get better, that's good for both the Packers and the Vikings. That's not bad for you necessarily. There's 3 wildcard teams. The goal, I'm not a big believer in trying to make other teams worse. I have no issue with interdivision trades. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Get your best value for your pick if you're going to trade back.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on. Let's go to the Bears. If Justin Fields is doing this great, he's probably giving it an F-, but it's not Justin Fields. I'll get the Bears a B-. I will, because I like Kyler Gordon, who I'm still not convinced is not secretly you. And then also Jaquan Brisker at 48. So, they didn't have a first round pick, but still got 2, I think, fringe first round talent guys. I guess, they were into fringe first round, but 2 guys who I think will really come in and help their secondary out a lot, which they needed. They drafted Velus Jones, which was a reach. But again, receivers are tricky. And if he can work out, that could help Fields. I think the real issue with the Bears not helping Fields is they should have done it in free agency. But once you got to this point, you kind of have to get the best players available, which I think they did an okay job of.
Yeah, I ended up going C again. It's
Mhm.
just like I like the first two picks, like you said. I think those are two starters in the secondary, which the secondary also needed to get better too. It wasn't just helping out Justin Fields.
Uh-huh.
I think Braxton Jones is an interesting prospect. Um, I mean, I have no idea if he's going to be good just because he played at Southern Utah. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know how to essentially grade that. But the rest of it is just kind of like, okay, another one of my things is like, how many of these guys do I see playing on the Bears? I don't know if I see a lot of
Mhm.
these guys playing on the Bears in the future. I really don't. I don't see a lot of these guys translating to that level. And I don't like the Velus Jones pick because there were good receivers in this draft.
Uh-huh.
That did feel like a reach to me.
I agree. It's not what I would have done, but again, they got good value. They didn't maximize their value for at least those first two picks, which is kind of why. But you're right. I mean, and maybe B minus is a bit high because like the Bears also had four players who did not crack the top 400 on the consensus big board that they drafted. So that's not ideal.
Yeah, that is definitely not ideal.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if maybe Elijah Hicks or Jatir Carter are going to come out and do fantastic work. It's possible.
We'll see.
We'll see. Let's go to the Detroit Lions. One of the more fun drafts. Again, the Lions' best thing they did was not screwing up the second overall pick, getting Aiden Hutchinson. They did the right thing, got the easy pick, which is what they did last year with Penei Sewell as well. Just kind of doing the smart, obvious pick, and then trading up to get Jamison Williams. Typically, I wouldn't have been a fan of that, but I don't think they gave up as much as we've seen teams give up in the past. I think they gave up relatively fair value for that, and they needed help on the outside. Kind of what I kept complaining about with the Lions is they haven't been working on the outside. They did that. Josh Pascal is an interesting guy. They also got Kirby Joseph, who could be a plug and play starting safety for them at 97. So that's good value. Even Malcolm Rodriguez at 188 is interesting. So I give it an A minus. Again, they had good talent. I don't know how much credit I give them for Aiden Hutchinson falling to them, but I give them some credit. And the Jamison Williams pick I liked. So I'm going to give them an A minus.
Yeah, I have this as an A. I think this is a terrific draft. I think that Hutchinson falling to them, like you said, is terrific. I think getting a guy like Williams, him and Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a fun thing to do. They didn't feel like they had to chase a quarterback, even though quarterbacks were available. They just kept plugging at getting the best guys they could. I think Josh Pascal, like you said, is an interior defensive pass rushing guy, is very interesting too. Yeah, I look down this list, and this is a team where it's like, okay, like you said, they didn't have a ton of picks, but I see potentially 6 guys playing on this team going forward, and this is a team that needed starters badly.
Yeah. The only thing I could slightly say is like, if all these quarterbacks falling, it wouldn't have been the worst idea in the world to draft one of them too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but at the same time, if they didn't love him, you might as well just keep getting guys. You need a lot more. Quarterback does help, obviously, but this team needs a lot. This roster needs a lot. If you felt like you just needed to keep getting the best player available, keep doing that.
Yeah. And it does feel like they're very much preparing for the future. Next year seems like when they're going to be getting the draft, the quarterback here. And, they're really one of the few teams I've seen commit to a deep rebuild. And I think it's a smart strategy.
I agree. I'm
Mhm.
interested to see Dan Campbell forever, man. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this to
Sure.
happen.
Yeah. Let's go to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Super Bowl champs from 2 years ago had an interesting draft. I gave them a C minus here. They drafted for need. This is what Tampa Bay has been doing, is specifically going after needs. And because of that, you're not going to maximize your value, but you probably are going to make yourself as good as possible for the next year. They've done this 3 years in a row, so it's gone okay. The Logan Hall pick I like. I believe I had him at 33 on my board. He goes at 33, so I like that. Luke Gadecki was someone who I didn't really have on my radar, but I don't hate that pick. The Rachaad White pick, hated it when it happened, but they could use a good pass catching back. So I get it. Don't know if you had to spend pick 91. Did not like the punter at pick 133. Kate Otton's interesting, and Zion McCollum, some people are very high on. He went at 157. So some good stuff here, some not great stuff here. Definitely drafted for need. Did get better year one, but I think that this was, they did not maximize their value as well as they perhaps could have.
Yeah, I ended up going B because I thought they did get good players though. I'm one of those guys who's a fan of Zion McCollum. I think this team desperately needed depth at defensive back too, and they got it at I think good value in round 5. I like the first 2 picks, even though I was convinced by all ends that it was going to be Travis Jones at 33. I was just convinced that was their guy. It wasn't though. Logan Hall, I think he actually could pair better with Vea, so it could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, if so, let's just say hypothetically, if they took, I'm trying to think of who was taken at that time. If they took Sam Howell in the Jake Camarda spot, what do you grade this draft?
Interesting. I don't know if that moves the needle too much for me. It might move it from a C- to a C. I don't know, because again, I don't know how much a punter is helping us at all. But again, I don't know. I guess my thought is I don't really care about going after another quarterback here. I didn't love the Kyle Trask pick when that happened. I like the idea of just going all in, trying to win a Super Bowl now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Jason Light loves to draft special teams guys. Obviously Roberto Agoyo in the second round, drafted a kick returner in the fourth round last year. This is what he does.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I still thought, even with their later picks, I thought that was I thought they got good value. So we'll see how it works out for them. But I do think that they felt like that they had specific needs and then filled those needs as much as they could.
Yeah. Let's go to the New Orleans Saints. This might be a hot take. I don't know. I have them as a D plus here. So a little bit below average, a D plus, because they gave up a lot of draft capital to get Chris Olave, who I was not as crazy about as some other people were. I believe you were a lot higher on Olave than I was. So that's something. Trevor Penning feels very raw. I'm sure he'll get there, but I'm a little bit lower on. I like Trevor Penning. I don't love Trevor Penning. And then Alontae Taylor, 98th rated prospect on the consensus big board, drafted at 49th. So, and only had 2 other selections. So they only ended up with 5 players despite having all this draft capital. Gave up a lot. And I'm not even sure, I don't know if the Saints team can really contend for a Super Bowl right now. So I think they'll beat my team twice in the regular season. I think they're not going away. They're not going away anytime soon. But they just didn't get the prospects that maybe I love, and they gave up a lot of capital to do so. They got better, but did they maximize their draft capital that they spent on these guys? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did have him as a D as well, because I'm a huge fan of Olave. I think he was my number 3 receiver, and they ended up taking him number 2. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think he's got great speed. I think he's going to fit really nicely in this team. I was trying to find. I saw a tweet about it, basically how all the trades kind of played out and what exactly they gave up to end up getting this Olave pick. It was a lot. It was a lot. They gave up a ton of stuff, and multiple draft moves ended up moving up to 11 for Olave. That's a lot to move up to take a receiver at 11. I feel like, even though I like taking receivers in the first round, as evidenced by our mock draft.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be good, but that's a lot to give up for him. Same thing with Penning too. I mean, this is a team he's going to have to start right away, and I think that he had some stuff he needed to work out, especially the penalty stuff. He has to be better at. He's got to fix that basically right away now. And yeah, I think those 2 picks are going to define this draft and this team right now, and I think it's going to be interesting. I like Tyrann Mathieu signing though.
Yeah, that was good. That definitely that's their best move of this weekend. I mean, that should get them excited. Let's go from the Saints to their arch nemesis, the Atlanta Falcons. Here, Falcons. I like this draft. Gave them an A. I really like getting Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round, 74th. That's great. I think he's someone who I heard some rumblings about him going there at 8. And I was like, that's a little high, but I do like that fit. Kind of a Ryan Tannehill type potentially, who could go, not quite the arm talent as Tannehill, like kind of a similar mold that you could see work with Arthur Smith. But they get him at round 3, so they're able to get Drake London, who I think could be. I think he's the real guy who could be AJ Brown in this draft class, which is not a connection I made until he got drafted by Atlanta, where he could be a good slot over the middle guy who can win on the outside. Arnold Ebiketie, who I had as a 1st round talent, goes at 38 with them. And even Troy Anderson, who he's someone who could be a big, I don't want to say boom or bust, because I don't think he'll be a bust, but could be a boom prospect. And even Tyler Algier, who I had as my top 5 running back, going at 151. A lot of picks I really liked here.
Yeah, I don't know if I had Ridder this high on my draft board, but at the same time, I think it's good value there. I probably would have gone Willis, but at the same time, if you like Ridder more, that's fine. It's, we'll see what happens with that. I have Algier really high on my running back board too. And after cutting Mike Davis, he's obviously going to get some playing time right away and, play with Cordell Patterson. So that'll be interesting. I think Troy Anderson's a good pick. I like Ebiketie too. I think that's good value for him. And then they got my number 3 player on my big board at number 8. So that's a guy I will put my stamp on. I think Drake London's going to be the best receiver this draft. I think he's my number 1 guy. I have put a lot of faith in him to be really good, and I think he's going to be awesome. This is an A for me.
Yeah. I think there's 2 teams that I feel way better post-draft about where their franchise is at than I did pre-draft, and I think they're both in the division of my favorite team. The other one, the Carolina Panthers here, with Akeem Ekwonu at number 6. And I really believe when they made this pick, they said, we're not getting a quarterback. I think they said, this is it. We can't go quarterback here. It's not the right move for the franchise. Hopefully Sam Darnold figures something out. Maybe we'll get Baker Mayfield or something. Like, this is what we're going to do. And when Corral fell to 94, they trade up and get him. Just such a great move by the Panthers to still get a quarterback who will get playing time. He will get some starts and could be very good for them. Not the worst situation in the world for him either. This could save Matt Rule's job. Akeem Ekwonu, I think, will really help that offensive line. And then they get 4 just incredible athletes with their last 4 picks. They just said, let's take some flyers on guys. This is really a 2-player draft for the Panthers, but it's, a really good player and someone who is, plays a really important position.
Yeah, I think, Matt Corral was my 32nd prospect. He went 94. Ekwonu was my number 2 tackle. They took him first, but I understood why he was number 1 on a lot of people's boards because he's just so technically sound. And not only that, I think there's 2 starters on the offensive line from this draft. Cade Mays had a really interesting kind of background. He transferred from Georgia while his dad was suing the school, and then ended up being a stud at Tennessee. The big thing with Cade Mays isn't that he isn't good, because he's been a stud basically since high school. The thing with Cade Mays is he going to stay healthy? I think if he stays healthy, he's another starter for this team. I think that's potentially 2 or 3 starters on this team, and I think it's a good draft. I have it as an A too. This is my 4th A.
Yeah, there you go. So let's move on. Let's go to the Rams. Now, we have considered just doing an entire podcast on the Rams draft itself because there's so much to talk about, so much to get through here, Kyle. I gave the Rams a C+, kind of one of those you got some interesting guys. You had you didn't have a top 100 pick. I'm not going to hold that against you heading into the draft. Jacoby Durant's an interesting guy. They do not have a cutoff for size, or weight or anything. They'll draft a Tutu Atwell, so they got some interesting guys here. Again, I haven't fully studied a ton of these guys too heavily, but from what I've read about them, there's some guys that I think are interesting enough here that I'll give them a C+.
Yeah, I just went C. Kind of the same thing. I think Bruce is a potential starter for this team. And then there's a bunch of interesting players. I'm not sure if any of these guys are going to play. I'm not sure how they're going to be good, but this is kind of the Rams' MO. They don't really care about those early picks. This is what they want to do. I still like a lot of the prospects they got, and it'll be interesting to see how they translate.
Yeah. Enjoy Sack Lunch with a super chat. What is the best flavor of Freeze Pop? So is that's like the skinny thing that's it's almost like a little cube of ice, right? Yeah. I think, do they taste different? I feel like they very, very much just all taste very much like cold sugar.
No, that's not true. Grape is the best flavor.
Okay. Grape. Gotcha. It's been a while since I've had a Freeze Pop, admittedly, Kyle.
Oh, well, I think it has for me too, but it's still grape.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's the answer. Food review with Jackson and Kyle. Maybe that's our next podcast. We'll start. Let's just jump over to the Cardinals. I don't know if we had too much to talk about with the Rams' incredible draft. The Cardinals. I gave this. I was so conflicted on this. I gave it a D- because, as in D as in dog minus here, I did not love the Marquise Brown trade. The only rationale I really have for that is maybe they just Brown and Kyler Murray have some sort of relationship. Is it possible they just said, the way we're viewing it, we're giving up a first-round pick for Hollywood Brown and then also keeping Kyler Murray happy? Is that worth the pick? And maybe it is, if that's the difference in keeping Kyler or having him walk or demand a trade. Really like Trey McBride. Don't really understand that fit because I don't need a tight end, but I like the value there. And then Cameron Thomas and Majai Sanders, 2 guys who I have been pounding the table for, saying they're underrated, and they actually fell from their consensus big board. So those 2 guys, big fan, like that stuff. I gave it a D- because I just didn't love the Marquise Brown pick or Brown trade.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I didn't love the trade either, but So do you think that they knew Hopkins was getting suspended when they made the trade?
I have no reason to believe that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting though because it felt like a desperation move. But they also kind of. I'm not a Hollywood Brown guy, but they also needed a receiver. I do feel like you could have just drafted a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
but I don't know. Maybe it is. If it does keep Kyler Murray happy, maybe then it's a good trade. It works out. But at the same time, I do like some of these picks though. I like
Mm-hmm.
McBride. I think is a starter. Like you said, Thomas and Sanders. I think either start or fill a role on this team going forward. Who needed edge rush help after Chandler Jones obviously left, and then Latia Smith is another guy who. I mean, can basically play 4 positions for this team maybe in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really good pick at 215. There's just guys down the list. And they drafted a guy from Valdosta State, which I love. So that gets a little bit of a bump for me too. So I just think down this list, I think that there's pretty good players. And it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah. It should be fascinating. Again, there's no way they knew AJ Brown was on the market, right? Like I can't imagine they chose Hollywood Brown. Like they gave up the pick they gave up for Marquise Brown was the 23rd overall pick. Marquise Brown was drafted with the 25th overall pick. He ended up gaining value despite having 3 years of his rookie deal knocked off and clearly not living up to the hype. Now, listen, is there reason to believe he could be better in the Cardinals offense as opposed to the Ravens offense? Sure, absolutely. But it's not good value.
Yeah, that's fair. It is interesting. And then obviously the Brown thing, AJ Brown right after it makes it even more interesting. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm interested in this draft. I still think that there's good players though, just from the guys they drafted.
Yeah, sure. I do agree with that. If they didn't trade for Marquise Brown and got someone else instead, I'd probably like this move a lot more. Let's go to 2 teams left. Let's go to the San Francisco 49ers, who did not have a first-round pick, but got someone who I had a first-round grade on, Drake Jackson. They then made just a dumb decision that is not smart, and I will never defend this stuff like this. The Tyrion Davis price. Just like, why are we drafting running backs here? Why ever draft any running back? It's the craziest thing, Kyle. Why does Shanahan schemes consistently go after running backs, despite the fact that no matter what running back they have is always successful? I do not understand it. Brock Purdy, number 262, Mr. Irrelevant there. Which also, why do we do this Mr. Irrelevant stuff? Poor Brock Purdy. What is he like? And they paraded around. I was looking up onto CBS, just to have little recaps of every single player. I was looking at that, and for him, it's highlighted, Mr. Irrelevant. It's this whole thing. Like poor Brock Purdy. He just wants to be drafted.
Yeah, exactly. I did go with the B just because I think that there's interesting players throughout this draft that they got. I think even Kalia Davis going down is someone who can be pretty good. We'll see if it works out. The running back thing is interesting, but I mean, the 93rd pick, it's not horrible.
Sure, it's not. I gave it a B plus though.
It's not drafting Kenneth Walker in this early second round,
right?
Spoiler alert. And then I mean, I think Jackson's a steal because I had him as a high second rounder. And they got him in the late second round, one of the last picks of the second round. If Danny Gray ever learns to catch the ball, he's going to be a good receiver. So I think that going through this draft, there's interesting prospects. They obviously need some stuff to work out for them, but I think that there's solid players here.
Yeah, I also don't really see how Davis Price fits in that scheme, and that happened to Trey Sermon, and then it's well, wait and see, and then we never saw. So I don't know. Weird. We'll see how this works out. But again, the Drake Jackson pick, I still gave it a B plus as a whole. I just didn't love that pick. Let's go on to the final one, the Seattle Seahawks, who had the worst pick in this draft. I think the Kenneth Walker thing is it's so Pete Carroll. It's completely baffling. I still gave this draft an A minus because I thought they got a lot of players who I like here. They got Charles Cross. I like Boye Mafe. I like Abraham Lucas. I mean, Lucas and Cross are going to be 2 really good pass blockers for them, I think. Kobe Bryant is very fascinating for me. Tariq Woolen was the 65th overall. Yeah, that's right. Tariq Woolen was the 65th overall prospect. He got drafted at 153. So they got some really good players here. I'm not going to let the Kenneth Walker pick freak me out too much because, again, there is value in a Kenneth Walker, just nowhere near worth spending the 41st overall pick on. But as a whole, I did like this draft as a whole by the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I did too. I did go with a B because I think that they're going to start two tackles, which is ironic, given that
Mhm.
they just traded Russell Wilson
Uh-huh.
and they add two starting offensive linemen in their draft. I like Mafe too. The Walker thing is inexcusable to me.
Right.
I mean, they could have gone in so many other directions. They could have taken a quarterback. They could have taken I don't know. They could have done anything. They could have traded back and then drafted a quarterback. They could have traded
Mhm.
back like 50 picks and then drafted a quarterback. Taking a running back at 41 when you have Chris Carson, when you have Rashad Penny, you have these guys in place. I just don't see the need. I really like the Woolen pick too. I mean, he's huge and he's also fast. There's not that many guys with that kind of variable skill set.
Mhm.
Um, I think it'll be interesting to see. I do have it as a B. That Walker pick though is the only thing holding it back from an A.
Yeah, fair enough. And again, Chris Carson does have like he has like a neck thing, so like he might not play again. We don't know, so that's kind of thing. But like just the way that I see it, I'm with you. It's like, okay, we're getting a backup running back, and like, isn't like the Rashad Penny and Chris Carson thing the perfect example like why you don't do this? Again, like you have a perfect example right in front of you, and you choose to say, "Huh, that was weird. Let's ignore that." With Chris Carson and Rashad Penny both going in the same draft, I believe Chris Carson was like a 7th rounder, or maybe he was undrafted. Penny was a 1st rounder, and like over the course of their careers, Carson has had a better career. Now Penny better last season, but still, also I'll let you respond to that in a second. Super chat. What do you think of the NFL international games? I'm really excited for the game in Munich. Greetings from Germany. Wow, appreciate the German listeners or viewers. I think it's cool. I like the international games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's
Hmm.
going to be good stuff, and I think it's entertainment, and I think it's interesting. I think it's great to spread the game of football. We're getting some interesting German prospects too. We obviously
Hmm.
have Jakob Johnson, who was on the Patriots for a number of years as their fullback, but then you're going into the future years. There's some interesting guys in the college ranks too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Any final thoughts on the Seahawks draft?
Uh, I think we covered it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, didn't love that pick, but at the same time, it's very Pete Carroll. I think the best thing though is they stay disciplined. They took the tackle at number 9, who they're supposed to. I think Cross going to start for this team a number of years.
Yeah. All right. So that is all 32 teams. An hour and 22 minutes. Didn't spend forever. We probably could have spent 2.5 hours if we we wanted to on it. A lot to get to. I don't know what our show is for next week. We'll have to figure that out at some point. But this was a fun show.
Yeah, yeah. It's draft season is over now. Nobody talk about it. We're done talking about it for until next season. Uh,
Hmm.
no, I'm just kidding. But this was an interesting show. I'm interested to see how a lot of these picks pan out, and I'm fully expecting Kenneth Walker to be the next great. He's going to be like Walter Payton or something, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. That'll definitely happen. So, it should be interesting. Kyle, let them know where you can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gron, and then make sure to follow the account page. That is at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course. You can also check out the audio only version of this if you like, anywhere you get your podcast. That should be available. It's the On the Sideline podcast is what you search, or if you discovered us through the audio only feed, check out the YouTube channel, Jackson Cougar Sports. I've made way too much content on this channel this past week. I made 98 videos during the 4-day stretch of the draft and day after, Kyle.
Busy man.
Yeah, there's a lot of work there. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to watch now. Done with work for a bit. Go watch my Lightning. Hopefully, not embarrass themselves in game 2.
Yep. Bruins got
Same
stomped.
boat.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I will be at game 3 Friday of Phoenix Dallas, and then
Oh,
game 4 Sunday of Phoenix Dallas.
huh.
Uh,
And I will be at game 3 and 4 of the Lightning Leafs. So there you go.
there you go.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be good stuff. We got 127 days till football season.
There you go. Go. Any final thoughts? We're ready to help.
That was my final thought. No more thoughts for the rest of the day. Let's head out.
Okay, no more thoughts until next week, of course. Again, thanks to everyone. We do appreciate it. And until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.